Welcome to episode 187 of Your Career Podcast. Welcome to Your Career Podcast. Each week I provide valuable career development advice or fascinating interviews with professionals who have made amazing career changes. In today's rapidly changing world of work, managing your career has become more and more difficult. So how do you stay relevant? How do you keep your skills up to date? What skills will remain in demand, and how can you land your dream job in this digital world in which the recruitment process is constantly evolving? For support to manage your career, the Careers Academy online is where I provide all the support you need. There are career management resources, personal branding and LinkedIn programs for you, together with confidence building programs, resume writing masterclasses, and much, much more. You can join my monthly group career coaching sessions, plus have a one-on-one coaching session with me. Visit www.thecareersacademy.online for all you need to take control of your career. Find the links in my show notes at janejacksoncoach.com/podcast 2. I can't wait to see you on the inside. Organizations need effective talent development and effective change management strategies. How do you develop leaders who are agile and responsive to the inevitable changes in the world of work today? Sarah James has been helping organizations identify and develop talent for over 25 years across 3 countries and a range of organizations and industries. As a change management specialist with ChangeWorks, her work focuses on creating effective talent strategies and detailed talent management process design to support busy managers and leaders get the best from their teams. Most recently, Sarah led the talent development team at the Reserve Bank of Australia and designed a new talent management framework, delivered the inaugural Executive Leadership Development Program, and a suite of learning programs targeting all managers. She built out their diversity inclusion agenda, implemented new HR systems, and managed the day-to-day talent processes such as performance management, talent management, succession planning, learning and development, and postgraduate awards. Sarah and I met at the Reserve Bank a number of years ago, where I delivered over 20 career development journey workshops to empower leaders to take control of their careers. I was always impressed by the care that Sarah constantly displayed when leading her team, and now it's my pleasure to interview her on her career journey on Your Career Podcast. Sarah has made a number of fascinating transitions in her career, having worked in the airline industry, legal, petroleum, IT, media, banking, and also the public sector, and into consulting. In her very early days, she was based in Germany with British Airways, where she headed up their cabin crew training. Now that gives us something in common because in my early days, I was a member of the cabin crew myself with British Airways. What a coincidence. Now, Sarah's strengths include authenticity, creativity, and a deep understanding of others. She has presented and facilitated across countries, industries, and all stakeholder groups, from the newest recruits to the executive. In this podcast episode, Sarah and I discuss how she successfully carved her career path across the globe, and now, as a change management specialist, she is well placed to help individuals and organizations to navigate organizational change. And now welcome Sarah to the show. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Jane. Thanks for having me.
Well, I've been looking forward to interviewing you for a very long time because we met about 3 or 4 years ago at the Reserve Bank, and then I was delivering some training for you and you were heading up HR, and there have been some really amazing changes in your life and in your career, and I've always been really impressed with everything that you've done because the different industries you've transitioned into and ever increasing roles within human resources and organizational development and change management too. So before we go into all of that, just to kick us off, can you tell me a little bit about what your early career aspirations were as a little girl?
Oh, I love the question. I think, to be honest, I think I just wanted to go and work for my dad. And he ran a local building society agency in the village, would you believe? And I wanted to go and work there. And then I think as I moved into being a teenager, I thought I'd go and work in childcare, looking after little kids.
Ah, so different, very different. Now, you're from the UK, yes?
That's right, yes.
Yeah, whereabouts in the UK are you from?
Grew up in Leicestershire, in the middle, if you know it. So basically, if you stick a pin right in the middle of the map of England, then that's where I'm from.
Ah, okay, so you've had country moves as well as career transitions. And now, of course, I've been stalking you on LinkedIn and checking out all the things that you've been doing over the years. And I found that we have something in common from way back when, because you started in cabin crew training in Germany as well as in the UK. And even earlier than that, 10 years prior to you doing that, I was cabin crew with British Airways. So if I wasn't quite so old, then you could have been my trainer many, many years ago. So tell us, how did your career progress? And, let's see how you made each change every time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a little bit of an anecdote right at the very beginning. When I was at high school, we had a careers advisor, and there was a particular course I wanted to study because I come from part German heritage and I didn't speak the language at all well. Failed my school exams. I was no good. It's German. And so I found a university course where you could do 2 years in the UK and 2 years in Germany. And so I'd set my sights on that. And the career advisor was talking to me about it. She said, "Oh, yes, no, that's too difficult. You'll never get on that." And that was one of my very first lessons in my career, is if you do not try, you'll never find out. And so I was basically going to just not give it a go. And I thought, no, try anyway. And I was successful, and I got into the program that I've been wanting to do for a super long time. But it really was one of the first moments of what does one do. So I did my 4-year degree, a double degree, finishing in Germany. And then I thought to myself, right, I'm going to go traveling. So I need to go and earn some money to go off on this lovely world trip. Holiday. And I joined a 3-day-old company in Berlin called Deutsche BA as the Girl Friday. They just needed someone to run around and do all the little jobs. And within a matter of weeks, a number of people had come from the UK. It's a very interesting story about the startup of the company and the Berlin Wall coming down and the difference that had on the commercial airline land in Germany at the time. And anyway, this boss identified something in me, really, and asked me to stay on and first of all run the administration for the cabin crew area. So we were building it up from scratch. Then to become a cabin crew manager, and then ultimately into cabin crew training. So I didn't start my career thinking that's it. Training is absolutely what I want to go and do, and I'm going off in that direction. It really was an element of luck and chance, I would say, combined with some hard work, because obviously to get the attention of my boss at the time, I had to be doing a good job and working hard in this startup environment. And one of the early interesting things again was the company was at 2 locations in Germany, moving to Munich. And so at that point, the role I was in was no longer available. And it was that first boss, Yvonne, who said to me, "How's about training?" And I was a quiet, shy thing at the time, wouldn't have said boo to a goose, wouldn't have been able to stand up in front of a room. But it was that element of her just seeing something in me, which has taken me basically down this path so many years later.
Isn't that interesting? It's a catalyst, really. But the one thing that you said earlier is that your career advisor didn't advise you to do this, and this is how, if you listened, your career would have taken a completely different path. But and this is true also when I was in high school and we had a career advisor, and he just said, go and visit banks, and we got to look at banks and hotels and all that sort of thing, and everything was really quite exciting. And when I actually applied for jobs, because he said, all of you must apply for jobs and see what happens, I actually got an interview and I got the job. And he goes, well, you're not supposed to get the job. It's just the process that you're supposed to go through. So that was, I kind of bucked the trend as well, but you obviously did. And so you knew what you wanted to do, even if someone else said no, because too many of us are influenced by what someone else says, and then there ends up being a self-limiting belief. But you took the bull by the horns, and you ended up going into training because someone saw the potential in you. Yeah, a mentor makes such a difference.
Yes. You're
And so,
quite right, actually, about having that defined idea, because I didn't know it was HR or training, but I just knew I wanted to get really good and go and learn my German.
yeah. Well, how good is that? And so now you're fluent in German
Yes.
too?
Yeah.
How wonderful. And then how did things progress from there?
And then after about 5 years at the German airline, where I loved every second of it, but it was coming to a pivotal point. Um, I think my father had just passed away. I was debating about whether to move back to the UK or not. But really, I knew that to progress my career in the airlines in Germany, I had to move to Frankfurt, where the Lufthansa base was, to go to the large German airline. So it was this balancing question for me about, did I want to go to a brand new city in Germany where I didn't know people, or come back to London, where, again, I'd have to rebuild, obviously, my friendships from uni. And it came down to that. So then I decided I'd go back to the UK for a short while. So left Deutsche BA, joined British Airways. And again, it was just at that point where they had a role which had my name written all over it, which was the training manager for all of the languages training. So at that time, the commercial strategy was, we've got 35 million customers, and only part of them are actually British or English speakers by native speakers. So therefore, how can we talk to our own customers in their own language? So there was a big push on the Brits learning languages as employing people from around the world who brought those native languages with them.
Fascinating. And so you had your time with British Airways, and then you transitioned. Now, your career path has been so interesting because you've gone from airlines and training into the legal profession, and then petroleum, computer hardware, the media industry, banking, and then to the public sector at the Reserve Bank of Australia, and now into consulting. So with those changes in industries, did you find that challenging at all?
It wasn't too bad, because when you know your specialization, HR and training, you can really use that across all of the industries. I do recall when I first arrived in Australia in 2002, going to one of the local recruiters, and I think the term he used was another bloody bomb. Which really made me giggle at the time, and I didn't realize really what he meant, I don't think, at the time. And so, that was a big step, because that was 10 years. My early career was 10 years in the airlines. And then within BA, had a range of things I could go off and do. So that was the biggest step. And I think probably the most challenging for me, to be able to cut away from the airline culture and start learning and respecting new cultures, as well as being simply different from what I knew. But no, so I was invited into the law firm for 12 months, which ended up being a bit longer, to establish learning and development. And it went from there. So I think now, if you know your own subject matter really well, and you're prepared to listen and learn, and not go barging in and trying to tell people how, in a new industry, how you know it all better. And in fact, a CEO we once had at Fuji Xerox put it really beautifully. He was talking to us about that concept and saying, the best thing to do is honor the past. So as you go in and learn about new organizations and industries, just think about honoring what went before you, and being respectful, I think, in the way in which you act and behave. And therefore, you're going to build strong relationships, and therefore you're going to learn about the organization, deliver what the strategy requires.
Yeah, I mean, honoring the past. That's a great tweetable tweet, actually, when it comes to organizational change and change management, because too often people come sweeping in with these brilliant ideas without fully understanding the culture that came before. And that causes so much disharmony with the people who want it the old way as well, because there are always people who don't want change, and there are others who will embrace change, but there tend to be more who don't want change than those who embrace change, which makes it quite hard, yes? So from learning and development and human resources, and then your specialization developed into organizational change and change management, yes?
Yes, that's right. So I think it grew into organizational development. And again, that's always around looking for opportunities and snapping them up where you can. And I consider the time I spent at Caltex really good for that, because I was invited into learning about new areas and doing new things. And Fuji Xerox similarly. And then that was it. It was all about, for me, I had then done a 5-year stint up in North Ryde, in the north of Sydney. and really wanted to come back into the city. So I thought to myself, well, how are you going to go about doing that? So one of the ways I considered that was, well, financial services is a very large industry, typically city-based. So start looking in those organizations and think about your transferable skills, because it's unlikely you can leap into an OD or an L&D role directly in financial services, because there are a lot of clearly very qualified people who are already doing it. So how else can you I think build the different steps to get to the goal? So my idea there was to move into the senior change role at Macquarie Bank for 12 months, which became 2 years, which was really lucky. And that gave me a couple of things. It gave me, again, new industry experience, and it gave me a couple of years to, what I say, sort of look back on HR, because I was not in HR for those 2 years. I was in the business banking division, and remind myself what it's like to be a line manager who's just receiving information and processes from the HR department, and remember that when, as an HR professional, as I am designing HR processes, thinking about, well, what it's like at the other end when the line manager's trying to do that. They've got a busy job already and you're just chucking process at them. How can you do that in a better way? So it gave me both elements of that. And then I had the financial services on my CV and could then make the jump into the Reserve Bank.
You've got some excellent company, British Airways, Caltex, Fuji, Xerox, SBS as well, Macquarie Bank, the Reserve Bank of Australia. Such amazing blue chip names that you've worked for, and you've made such an impact in each one as well. And the Reserve Bank, well, that's where we met. When I think you called me in and I was doing my career development workshops, which was a wonderful few years of many workshops. I think I must have met everybody in the entire bank at that
I think you did, and you came very highly recommended, as I remember. But no,
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I know. I will say we were a little bit worried about introducing a new style to the bank, but everybody loved it. So yes.
But this is all to do with culture, really. And I think listening and understanding what the people want. Now, when it came to moving from British Airways to Caltex to Fuji, Xerox, MacBank, etc., each company has quite a strong culture, and it was very different. As a professional, as you are, how did you find adapting to the different cultures? What were the challenges and how did you overcome it?
I mean, obviously it varies from organisation to organisation. And as I say, probably the hardest transition was from British Airways to the law firm, simply because it was my first foray out of the airline industry. And so what I have learned to remember along the way is the element of honouring the past and just stopping and listening, and understanding what the culture is about, what the custodians of the culture are about, and understanding slowly sometimes how you can work with that. So it does come back to, you can't barge in and just assume that what worked in organisation over here, A, over here, is going to work in organisation B over there. So you have to really get underneath what the power structures are, who those custodians are, what keeps it the way it is, and how to understand, how to find the change advocates, if you will, to start taking things in a new direction. So I think, the first transition was probably more difficult. And I remember at the time thinking, if I hear myself say one more time, oh, at BA, we used to do it like this.
That's a dangerous thing to say, isn't it? It's like, we used to do it like this in the old ways. I think that's the one thing that gets people offside very quickly. Yes, absolutely. It's like, well, we're not there anymore. This is how we do it now. But I like this: stop and listen to understand. That's a very, very good quote to remember if anyone's thinking about change management as well. And so now, obviously, you are very resilient and you're very brave, and you like to take the bull by the horns and just move country at the drop of a hat, and then make some changes. Now you have got this incredible background and wonderful experience in lots of different cultures. It lends itself really well to consulting, which is what you're doing now. So tell us a little bit about this.
Yes. So really what I was thinking about, and it comes back to thinking about the career holistically and realizing that I may have 25 years under my belt, but there's probably another 20 to go. So you don't have to stay set in the ways of, well, I must always stay in OD, in HR for the rest of my career. So really, I think for me it's about, well, what do I want to be doing? And so most recently I've come out of a business as usual role where we are implementing processes processes year in, year out. And there was less opportunity in that particular organisation to be able to change it up and be a little bit creative in what I wanted to do. So my idea with this move is to think about when we're coming in and doing consulting projects and change management projects, that's the point at which you can be creative and really design new processes. Because once it's in a business as usual format and you're implementing it every year, of course, you can make certain small tweaks throughout the year to make it a little bit better, but you rarely get the opportunity to have a blank piece of paper and remind yourself, why do we do this? And are we meeting all of those objectives in the way we roll it out? Because often the case is not 100%. So it's about the element of creativity for me.
Fantastic. What would you say, if I were to ask you, are your top 3 tips for success when it comes to career management?
Oh, yes. The first one is a career is very, very, very long. So hopefully. So don't try and do everything in the first 5 or 10 years or beat yourself up about, well, I haven't achieved this or I haven't achieved that. You've got a long time. And it's okay to stop and take breathers along the way. Another one is to think about the kind of reputation you want to build. And that in the early days, that's amongst your teammates as well as with the leaders. But who do you want to be? Do you want to be considered or build that reputation as the person who's willing to jump up and try new things and do different things and give it a go? Or not, I would say. So early career, it's about saying yes to things that you might not even fully understand yet, but just giving it all a go. And I think, again, in the early days, about, taking every opportunity that's presented to you, even if it doesn't look good. And then finally, I definitely think it's about the understanding that as you go through your career, your own definition of career success changes. So it's in your 20s, it's different to in your 30s, in your 40s, and as you have different family and other obligations that come into it. So allow yourself to reset every few years and saying, there might be a consolidation phase, there might be a growth phase, there might be another consolidation, there might be you want to jump off and go and do something else. So just allow yourself to reset and think, what was important to me 5 years ago, is that still as important to me right now? And is that still what I'm chasing? And if it is, keep going. And if it's not, allow yourself to reset and think about what else you might like to do or how else you might like to do.
Valuable advice there, because really our values change over time as well. And the things that were important to us in our 20s are very different in the 30s. And then once you have children or you get a mortgage, it makes such a difference, doesn't it?
Yes, that's right.
And
you mentioned resilience as well. All sorts of life events happen. So how do you balance all of that as well? But I think someone said some good advice to me a few years ago. They said something like, think about it from the perspective of money, status, location, and work. And you're always trying to balance those two things. And at one point, money and status might be more important. So off you go and focus on that one. And then another time, location might be the next important thing, or the work you're doing. So it's always about resetting those things, I think.
And all the relationships that you build over time. I think one of the most important things also to remember is to maintain your network and the relationships that you've built through the years, because, from 25 or even 30 years ago, if you maintain that contact, they're always going to be part of your network as mentors or advisors, or just, a sounding board, which would be quite helpful too. And you've certainly got people all over the world that you can tap into.
I also like to think it's worth reflecting on, lots of colleagues, and particularly your managers, about what their particular strengths were. So I do think back and think, well, that person, I learned that from them, about how to understand and use your team and focus on what their strengths are. And then another manager, I like to think about, well, they allowed me the opportunity to try new things that I didn't know very well, but they just let me try and let me give it a good old go. And sometimes you find managers where you say, okay, I wouldn't do it like that. But it's about identifying what it is and bringing it into your consciousness, basically, so that you either learn to do more of that with your own team or not. And another thing I'm thinking of as well, just pops into mind, is around the career success piece. But sometimes you might be gunning for, I would like greater status and I would like a bit more money, for example, and therefore off you go into the managerial track. And then you might And what a lot of people, I think, don't necessarily realize is there is different work associated in that path than in the technical stream, and understanding that both streams are important and valid and necessary. And if you try something, like if you do go off into the leadership path and go, hang on a minute, I don't like this, it's okay to reset and come back and go off in the other path again, instead of thinking you've got to stay somewhere where you're not happy for a long time just because what might it look like to the outside world. It doesn't matter what it looks like to the outside world. It matters how you feel, and how you're enjoying what you're doing every day.
Yeah, I think so often, sometimes we're tapped on the shoulder because there's a promotion or there's some more money, or, oh, here's an idea, would you like it? And then you tend to go off on a certain tangent without thinking too much about it. And when that happens, that can be quite dangerous because you may be veering away from your career anchor. And if you veer away from your career anchor, then you're not going to be 100% happy. Now, Sarah, there is so much that I could talk to you about, and we could carry on for a long time. However, if someone wanted to reach you, where's the best place to find you?
Oh, yes. I think the most easiest is via LinkedIn. So I regularly check in there, daily. So yeah, a message via LinkedIn is the absolute easiest way to get hold of me.
Wonderful. And so we're going to find you under Sarah James. Okay. And so if you look for Sarah James, you'll find her because she's the one with the amazing career journey. So thank you so much for your time today, Sarah. Your contact details, the link to your LinkedIn profile, I'll put in my show notes in janejacksoncoach.com. So it's easy for people to click and find you right away and request to connect. And good luck with your incredible consulting career now at ChangeWorks, because that's just an amazing next step for you. And I look forward to hearing how Sarah James carries on with her incredible career journey.
Thank you so much, Jane. It's been really enjoyable.
Okay. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Bye now.
Bye.
You've been listening to Your Career Podcast with Jane Jackson. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on iTunes. I'll love you for it. And as promised, here's the link to your free job search guide. Go to www.thecareersacademy.online/free job search guide. Too easy. Or go to my show notes and the link will be there. So hop over to janejacksoncoach.com/podcast. And remember, until next time, believe in yourself and create magic.